Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm in beautiful British Columbia, Abbotsford, BC. Today, I'm here to speak to you about organized crime. Organized crime to own a city so you become rich and build your empire. Abbotsford City was led by some of the greatest people that only cared as mayor for their residents. George Ferguson, what a tremendous man. To be his neighbor and to have his philosophy in my life and guard our city from against guys like Henry Brown. Then came George Perry and Bruce Banman, men that only ran the city and weren't cared about their own selfish gains. Today, I'm here on McCallum Road. McCallum Road is where Sage Rod Funk has his sales office from the old Abbotsford newspaper site. So let me explain something to you. I want to make that very clean. When I had Darren Braun beside me, Henry's son, I went over to the Mission RCMP. The Mission RCMP made it clear not to leak to Darren Braun that what Abbotsford's gold was and what we were doing to flush out the organized crime, what city officials were paid off, and what was taking place in Abbotsford City. Now, I want to explain to you this. When the first site was proposed by the first developer, it was 200 and something units. Henry told Darren Brown to tell me that they hid the development sign illegally, knowing that I would go create a story about it. Then Henry could tell the developer and the contractor, the city of Abbotsford will have to go after you. You have to sell your piece of property in your development. We saw that happen on Granada Farms when he said, if you want out from the fines, the best is now that you sell the piece of property. Leveraged it in that to where he won. It was no coincidence that the land didn't go up for sale to big developers, Aquilini, Microcode, Peter Wall, Law Financial, Bruno Wall, and Van Tannen. It was a hot deal under the table and diverse bought. We have to go through every piece of land Diverse owns federally and audits because they did it here so clearly. They did it in Chilliwack and everywhere they're building. That means they've been paying a city officials off. It doesn't matter Rob Funk is the CEO of Diverse. When you're a CEO and you're led as a project manager or a mayor or a city council, you know better over every other homeowner that does it and they didn't know the coach. You know better. Rob Funk used his connections politically with Henry, Ed, and Mike, and used his money that I'm untouchable. I can do this shit anywhere. This is the CEO, Ron Funk. Look at me go. Week after week, the Abbotsford newspaper was put in harm's way to its residents from asbestos, from dust, from pollution, to everything, for greed. This guy could care less about any resident. It was shithole greed that he went about. Then the contaminated soil and everything. It takes no brains that when the complaints went into the city lawyer and manager are supposed to seize that and then call the feds in because he's not compliant. They didn't. But Darren Brown showed me where they were laying in bed and what they were doing. Then to come along and propose 455 units. See right here? It doesn't say selling 200 units or not. 455. Not re-cementing to the community, not bringing it back to the public hearing. Let me tell you what. Henry had city councils in his house. That means they would vote like they did on Cooper's Farm and go, well, we passed it. So Rob Funk and Sage can go with Diverse and they can have their 400 units. We passed it over to journal community. Then what has to happen is you have to have planning and engineering and everything go through it. It can't. It's got to be stopped. It's got to go under criminal investigation. And Rob Funk's got to go to jail because it's insider trading. It takes no brains to know when you're breaking the law that the Abbotsford Shit Squad should have been enforcing when they were called. That means somebody on top is calling the shots that can pay the local police off, and that was guaranteed. So when I went to the RCMP and said, what do we do? He said, call the Abbotsford police. They'll infraction rates all them trucks with no flaggers and everything. These tests were put out there to show that somebody in the back's owning it. But no developer is allowed to go in and change the official community plan and upgrade it to what they think they want with the city engineers and planning, because now you bought them off. What was proposed originally was the site that you bought from the other developer, and they didn't. They resubmitted it quietly, illegally, and fraudly to say, now we got the building up. We got the building 90% sold out. What do we do? That means you frauded the people you're selling it to. This is what Aaron Mortgage did. This is fraud, and it's a criminal activity to sell a site that's not illegally composed, that wasn't publicly brought to the community, and the community had say or nothing. It's insider trading, it's racketeering, it's fraud. Make no mistake that Rob Funk and his connections to Henry Brown is where he got this through. Meaning if Diverse did it here, Diverse is doing it everywhere. That's how they were gaining over all the other construction companies. And the realtors that have been selling this have to lose their license and never allowed to practice because they're selling illegal suites. This is why Henry Brown had to block. This is why Henry used great toes in the chamber to say, I'll pay for all your signs and everything you're out, we'll let Ross run. This is why he used Vicky Hopes in the Abbotsford newspaper not to run me. Why? When I learned from Darren Braun, they were illegally bringing that and resubmitting 455 units over to 200. My first goal, I told Bill Vanderzem and his MLAs, is to bring the RCMP and the feds in and take Rob Funk's ass down and his whole bloody company. Nobody's above the law, no one can use the law, and no one can bend it. This shit has been carried on because Rob Funk paid the city officials off. Let me tell you how I can make that clearly. When Henry Brown shows this to Rob Funk, the day one when asbestos was blowing in all the neighbors, there was no water, there was no contaminate, no wrapping the site in plastic. And day two, there was no flaggers hauling illegal soil over into Chilliwack. And you know, when I went to the Chilliwack City and the mayor, they red carded it right away. So you know that official wasn't paid off, Ken Papa. Then they carried out a beautiful, just unvicious acts on the local residents. They submitted 455 units so they could get it. They were hoping the building would build up and they could get it. That means Mike DeYoung is what Darren Brown said. He was Henry's bitch, and so was Ed Fast. Because when the two people sitting as MLAs and MP learn about it, the first thing they're supposed to do is call it out right now in the open. Ed Fast didn't call it out in the open. He quit. Mike DeYoung, the sitting MLA, said, you cut a deal with Henry. He owns Abbotsford. Who would ever tell you something like this? That means Henry didn't own Abbotsford. The cartel was running the private police department. The Abbotsford police don't know what to do. They're going like the feds. So let me tell the Abbotsford police what you need to do. When I ran for mayor, Henry Brown put you in front of my house day in and day out. It was the wisdom and knowledge of the RCMP said make sure everybody witnesses that and it's locked in because somebody is paying into organized crime, officer or no officer. They need the Abbotsford police now. Rob Funk needs to go in and pay them people that he paid, that Henry paid last time to do it, in order to get this all stopped. Because what should take place is there's nobody should be allowed this. Bruno Wall from Wall Financial will tell you. Mike Dakota will tell you. Aquilini's will tell you. Stuart Olson will tell you. Van Tanner will tell you. These bastards are into organized crime. Insider trading and organized crime. But let me make this clear. When Gabriel went on my private property to take my signs down in front of cameras using an electoral office to help Henry load Ross, that meant right there city officials were paid off. When the Abbotsford residents and me monitored Diverse's site and the complaints went in, that meant city officials, engineers, and everybody were paid off. They were using their codes and their department for sympathy. So I learned something today from the Abbotsford City staff. They're all outraged. They said, bloody engineer was involved with this. Nancy Friesing's just going crazy. Ross, my name's everywhere, Ross. It was. When Henry called an East Indian woman a dumb brown cow because he needed a job where he could get it for a developer. Everything has to be audited. The last 8 years, Henry and them were in because it's fraud on Abbotsford residents. Abbotsford City told me today that Nancy Friesen was ordered, not told, ordered to call Bruce Banman and say, Bruce, how you doing, Bruce? I remember me, Bruce. I'm Nancy Friesen, Bruce. Cuddle up to me, Bruce. I need your help, Bruce. And get Bruce in front of the city to promote the Abbotsford Police and promote everything. Because if we could get beside Bruce Banman's the good guy right now, we could cover this. If I was Bruce Banman when you called, I would say, well, you should get Dave Sidhu and Kevin Falcon to speak. Since Dave Sidhu's wearing the BC United coat in the whole city, promoting the BC United, went around and said, I should quit my city council job when I was elected to be an MLA, and Corky Neufeld should step down for the school trustee, and Dave, as a part of the Fraser Valley Indo Association, and he's using the city and the city staff and everybody in the city staff to gain popularity and votes, and he's using that to get elected in the BC United. So the coward Dave Sidhu should be standing here with Henry Brown and Ross Siemens going, no, please, you know how much money we can lose? You know what we can lose? Well, you know there's 455 units. You know what Rob Funk can do? Rob Funk broke the fucking law. That is why Rob Funk Henry Brown ordered him to put Ross Siemens' signs on his development at the newspaper with Dave Sidhu and Dave Loewen. And this is how Rob Funk was paid. This is how Rob Funk was illegally going to get his site through from a cheating, frauding man to Rob Funk of Diverse. Abbotsford residents led by me. Nobody's above the law, nobody can use it, nobody can bend it. I suggest you pack Sage and Diverse up, because when all them developers and the proper authorities see, they're going to come through your whole bloody company. It's illegal, it's insider trading, and it's fraud. So I suggest you pick up the phone tonight, Rob Funk, and you tell Henry I need help. And Henry will order the Abbotsford Police to carry out threats. Nobody should have did this. And it took the city staff and city management upstairs to do it. And now they're fleeing. I'm quitting. Running is no excuse to get a way out from the law and not punish you from organized crime. You took advantage of public trust. You manipulated city and official office for financial gain. You covered up organized crime. You took part in organized crime, and you did it against the community. When Abbotsford residents went to build their houses, they were put on stop. So shit like this, illegal garbage by Diverse and that crap Rob Funk and the shit he was doing could make millions. Nobody's above the law. Nobody can use the law, and no one can bend it. And selling these units, every developer will tell you it's illegal. You're using the leverage of selling illegal units to bring money in to build off of it, which is now committing fraud, because you're asking somebody to buy a unit that is not legally proposed or allowed to be there. Bruce Banman, if you phone him and ask him, he was a former mayor, he'll say to Ralph Funk, you need your ass cleaned out, buddy. You're in organized bloody crime. Take your shithole company, bend it over, and it's going to get rammed up the backside because you're bloody illegal, and no CEO is allowed to get away with this shit. So I tell Rob Funk, Henry Brown crossed the law. When he came in his Alexis car to end my life. Henry Brown crossed the law when he bought the election. Henry Brown crossed the law when he used Keelan Olenoff to threaten to drop a lawsuit and videos that he damaged homeowners' houses. Where the mistake was, all of you should have called Henry Brown out and said, you're a piece of shit, man. You're a piece of garbage. And nobody would have got caught if you would have stood up what was right for the principles. Now Abbotsford Police got its ass up its head up its backside because it doesn't know what to do. Oh, we don't investigate crime. We're only worried about gangs, Rob. Gangs, Rob. This was supposed illegal. And Bruce Banman will tell you, and so will George Perry. What the fucking shit were you doing, Rob? What the hell were you doing, Rob? But not only that, all Diverse's property that he was being bought in Abbotsford, from the Cacaro Ranch to all this other stuff, as Henry Brown looked at the community plan and told him what to buy, his partner. So I'm live here from Alamo. I'll tell you, Rob, listen very closely. Abbotsford residents want the federal government in, and they want them in to seize your company for insider trading and threats and what took place. It was no brainer that when Henry ordered the Abbotsford cops to carry out what they were carrying out, to protect these secrets. So I go home, Rob Funk, and I start packing, and I find a jet out of Canada because Abbotsford residents made it clear. And now that the federal Conservative MP that's running against Mike is coming to see them homes, he's going to make it clear on all the illegal criminal activity that was done in the Abbotsford Police. So I'm live here on McCallum at the illegal sites. Live here at Sage to rob Funk. Nobody's above the law. No one can use the law, and no one can bend it. This is the worst scam that anybody ever could pull. And it took city officials and political politicians like Ed and Mike to cover that up. Because right now, that's leverage for Pamela and Alexis. And Mike DeYoung told Pam, you lay down. You don't call this out, Pam. The opposition who's running. And to slam the BC Conservatives or to slam the BC United, you should be speaking about it. Pam can't, because it's got Dave Sidhu involved, it's got Mike DeYoung involved, and it's got them all involved. So the only thing they got left now is to phone Bruce Bannon and go, Bruce, please, Brucey, take a picture with us, Brucey. We're so beaten down like dogs, Brucey. I'll pay your campaign, Brucey. I'll get behind you, Brucey. I'll back you, Brucey. And that's what they need to do. So I'm live here on the column.